What's the first thing you think of when you hear the word fool? Some may think of one who lacks experience or knowledge, which may cause him or her to make unwise decisions. You may think of impulsivity, missing screws, or perhaps one that's just plain stupid. We all at a point in our lives have been a fool and probably still have our foolish moments. But did you know that being a fool is a decision, and it is certainly a sin against Yah? One of the many words in the Bible for the word fool is Nabal, Nun Vet Lamed. It is one that is stupid, wicked, and lacks perception of spirituality. In Deuteronomy 32, Yahweh describes the children of Israel as a foolish and unwise people. And part of the reason for our foolishness, as stated in verse 5, is because we are a defected people. Unfortunately, we as a nation of people have been clowned and jested for a reason, and it's not just because of our skin color. We are a dull-minded and ignorant people. A great example is our belief in Africa being the promised land. In Hebrew, we have a phrase, Rosh Ketan. Yesh lo Rosh Ketan. It literally means he has a small head. Someone who is very narrow-minded, simple, unwilling to compromise. The word in Hebrew for defect is mum. This word is used in the Bible relative to animal sacrifice, not using an animal that has a blemish or a defect. This is also used in relation to those who may or may not enter in the temple of Yah or be used of service in the temple. This falls under individuals who have had a genetic defect, whether that be blindness, being deaf, mute, having deformities. Now, obviously, the whole nation of Israel did not have a physical defect, but they were and still are mentally and spiritually defected. And just as they left Egypt, we as a people who may have left and are planning to leave Babylon and its remnants into the promised borders have all been affected mentally, physically, and spiritually. But our society and our oppressors are not the only ones to blame. It starts with self. In the Strong's Concordance, one of the descriptions used to describe the word Nabal is one who is morally bankrupt or morally depraved. We may all have a sense of what this means, but let's read into that. What is moral bankruptcy? The state a person reaches when they trade away or violate too many of their core moral values and commitments. They may also lose important relationships, either as a cause or a consequence of his moral commitments. Someone who is morally bankrupt may or may not recognize that they have reached this state. Moral depravity, going beyond just an attribute of psychopathy. I'm just going to read the first sentence. Moral depravity is a voluntary violation of morals, values, customs, or manners, leading to an aberrant style of personality commonly known as antisocial psychopathy. Just reading these two explanations alone shows the rebellion and the witchcraft one has to do in their minds to the point that they are completely reprobate. They don't recognize, they don't see any wrong in the way that they think. Romans 2 tells us that Yahweh embedded within every human being a conscience to know the difference between good and evil, whether they know of Yahweh Yahushua or not, whether they are Gentile or of Israel. Moral depravity is deliberately going against morality or the Torah to do evil. The world calls this psychopathic, or in 2025, mentally ill. You're crazy. But the Bible tells us that this is demonic influence or possession. And we all, in our foolishness, have been demonically influenced. Psalms 14:1 says, "The fool says in his heart that there is no Elohim." We may look at this on an extreme level to think of an atheist. To be a fool is to live without the fear of Yahweh, to live lawlessly, to live rebelliously in sin, and we all have come out of that. This is intentional. Let's look at some examples of Nabal used throughout the Torah. Nabal is used in reference to the rape of Dinah and Tamar. Rape falls into any other form of sexual violence, exploitation, harassment, molestation, harassment, etc. It's also been used regarding adultery. We know that's clearly intentional. It was also used in regard to Achan and his family stealing the plunder. False prophesying. How many leaders amongst the Israelite community intentionally lie and alter the word of Yahweh? This is called violence to Yahweh's word. This word was also used in the story of Nabal and Abigail. Abigail was described as a woman with understanding. Now there's a few different words in Hebrew for the word understanding, and they all have slightly different connotations. The word that was used to describe her was sekel. Sekel is intelligence, which is applying knowledge and skill in action. It's also prudence, which is to act with care or thought for the future. Someone who has a rosh katan, who is morally bankrupt and reprobate, can no longer decipher the impact that their actions will have in the future. Their eyes have been dimmed. The story of Nabal and Abigail continues with King David requesting for food and supplies. And he requested for basic hospitality and kindness, even respect as an authority. How many of us have foolishly rebelled against authority, such as police, being argumentative, irate, and defensive when you get pulled over? Not being prudent to realize this officer has the right, has the power to arrest and do even more to me. The story goes on to say that Nabal was such a worthless and foolish man that no one could even speak to him. How many of us, including myself, have difficulty hearing criticism about the things we need to change about ourselves? If we can't receive simple advice or simple common sense, we are good for nothing, so morally corrupt that words of wisdom or common sense can't be comprehended. Who wouldn't show hospitality to a king at their door? The word for worthlessness in this chapter was Belial. This may be a familiar word to many, such as Bnei Belial, the children of lawlessness, in other words, children of Satan. Wickedness. Foolish behavior is wicked. Being inhospitable and stingy is evil, and Yahweh hates it. We can choose to live a life intentionally escaping moral values, to be men of Belial, wicked and worthless, digging a deep hole that we can't even come out of. Or we can live by the Spirit of Yahweh Yehoshua and live in the fear of Yahweh. What is the foolishness in your life that you have chosen and must give up?